Hello, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown, and I am absolutely delighted, beyond delighted, to say that on this special episode, I am here joined for an IndyCar Indy 500 preview by the one, the only, Tom Gaymor. You get an actual standing ovation for that as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Tom, how are you doing?
That's quite the welcome. I'm humbled. Yeah, thanks for having me. So thanks for reaching out. Thanks for having me. How am I doing? Just really excited to be, in the month of May. I think the Indy 500 is the greatest spectacle in racing. I love this race. I love this month. And it's just been incredible so far. I mean, the storylines that are just coming out of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway over the last week or so, you just couldn't script this. And as we come on now to record this, there's more breaking news that I'm sure we'll touch on and cover as the podcast develops.
We will get into the 2025, the 109th, if I got that right, 109th running of the Indy 500.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that a little bit later. I want to start by talking about your role. So if anyone watching this has maybe not watched IndyCar, but has watched any form of American sports, you'll notice that your adverts are occasionally interrupted by sports. And during those ad breaks in the UK on Sky Sports F1, we're very lucky, if you haven't watched IndyCar, that Tom, that's where you step in, you step forth, and you keep the commentary going, you keep it alive, you keep us excited. When I was watching the qualifying last night, and when they go for their very regular breaks, we have to say, and it goes very silent, and it just feels like a lull, and then they come back and it ramps up the excitement. It's quite nice that you keep that excitement quite high. So yeah, thank you for doing that job. But how did that come about?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it came about because the provision is needed, because in this country we stay on the live sport, and we're very lucky to not have, whatever it is, whether or not it's football, or I nearly said soccer then, whether or not it's football, rugby, Formula One, IndyCar, whatever it is, we're lucky to be able to kind of watch that from lights to flag. So the provision was needed, and I got involved when IndyCar was at BT Sport many years ago, and a chap called Nick Kennelly rang me up, and he's a lovely chap. I still know him now, and we're in contact, and he gave me that opportunity. I'd always loved IndyCar. I love American sport. I love the Super Bowl. Like, even, to this day, I watched the Super Bowl at the US Embassy this year. There's just something about US sport, the pomp and the ceremony, the magic around it, the sort of Hollywood movie scripts that play out. And this year's Indy 500 is no different, with Schwartzman on pole. But that's how I got involved. And then BT Sport lost the rights to IndyCar, and it went to Sky Sports. And there was a real sad and worrying moment inside me, because I love doing IndyCar, and you never quite know how that change will play out. And Neil Wooding at Sky Sports F1, who's one of the associate producers there at F1, got in touch very close to the first race and said, would you come and do it with us at Sky? And we've never looked back. And, I'm incredibly grateful to Neil and Billy McGinty, who's the big boss at Sky Sports F1, for the opportunity. But Neil is very much the engine room. He's the swan, if you like, looking very serene on the top of the water, but paddling away behind the scenes. Without Neil, we just wouldn't get to air every round and every race, and he does some remarkable work behind the scenes to make it all happen. So we're a really small team, and we love it. We just love bringing IndyCar to the European market, and the British audience, add the Republic of Ireland in there as well. And the IndyCar community over here is really close-knit. It's a really diverse community. Everyone gets on with everyone. There's no silly questions, and there's a warmth around that. So we're all just fans in it together, and we kind of get together on a Saturday or Sunday night, depending on when the race is, and just enjoy it.
That is one of the things that I absolutely love. I was going to thank you for it as well. I feel like I'm just saying thank yous at this point, but the interaction that you give to us fans, you know, you'll come on and you'll go, oh, so and so on Blue Sky, on Twitter. You're brilliant at keeping us involved. Again, keeping that excitement high, but keeping everyone involved. And as you say, that sense of community. You know, you're not just talking into your soapbox on your own in your little cupboard wherever you might be recording, but actually feeling like we're in that room with you. So it's a brilliant community, as you said, built up, and people can ask their questions, and that's something we like to do on this podcast. You know, people are typically Formula One fans, so I approach everything as if you're a Formula One fan and not seen that motorsport before. And there's a lot of carryover, of course, from Formula One to IndyCar, but people have still got questions, and I love that they can ask those questions, put them to you, and you'll answer them and give the best possible answer in the couple of minutes you've got before you have to hand back. So yeah, as I say, thank you for including us within that chat.
Thank you for being one of the people that sort of messages in, and there are so many similarities, but so many differences as well. One of the key challenges with IndyCar is the terminology. You know, just simple things like stickers. You know, what are stickers? Well, they're new tires, and that fools racing drivers when they first go over there. You know, you go for a test and they come on the radio and they're like, come in, we're going to stick some stickers on it, and you're thinking, why are you going to stick some stickers on the car? But you know, it's new tires, so it fools everyone. And getting that, you know, obviously Fox, they have that US audience, so they keep the terminology going. You know, but having that ability to kind of explain some of it, and the strategy, the races, because we have refueling and so forth, are so strategic. Trying to explain some of that and simplify some of that is a real joy, and I think it's needed as well, because it is complex otherwise. And the more you understand, the more you get into it.
Absolutely, the more you enjoy it. Absolutely, it's critical, you know, and I think that's the problem with social media a lot of the times. If you dare to go on social media and say, sorry, I don't understand, what's the prime and the option, someone might turn around and go, oh, what, you're just a new fan, oh, get out of here, like, what do you mean you don't know who Dale Earnhardt Jr. is, or something silly like that? So I as I say, I love that people have got questions. If I see people have got questions myself, get involved and answer them.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a silly question. Absolutely not, and welcome all of those. But yeah, social media can be a little bit of trial and error at times. It can be incredibly important, and it can also be a bit of a disaster at other times.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice once you got through the minefield. It's a very nice place. It's a very nice minefield. But
yeah, you meet good people.
Yeah.
You also, you know, maybe are connected to people that I don't mind constructive criticism, and it's so important that we're delivering a product. So it's really important that we get that right. And I love feedback, and you know, constructive feedback's really important, and anything we can do to make things better, or, you know, if we've got it wrong, it's important it's right. But sometimes when it sort of crosses over, or just starts at the direct hatred and abuse, that's just a bit much, and it can, you know, you call it out and you know, you deal with it, but it you know, I wish we lived in a society where that wasn't the case.
Block and move on. That's my strategy with that. So talk to us, as I say, about the fact that Fox over there, you know, Will Buxton, Townsend Bell, I that's the name I have to remember, and James Hinchcliffe, they're talking, the three of them, and then they go, we'll be right back. Is that the first that you know that you'll then be taking over, and how much notice do you then get that you've got to hand back to them?
Yeah, so it's changed over this year, because we had a relationship with NBC and Peacock, and that was very well oiled, because it had been through various different years through the cycle that they had the rights. And Peacock was a live streaming platform, so they did, throughout the practice and qualifying, talk through the breaks, and it was just a race when it was on NBC where I needed to be there and fill in. Now Fox have the rights. There's been a transition period where Fox are settling in, finding out what is right for them, and also Fox aren't there to deliver an international feed. You know, that's the responsibility of IndyCar. So there's been some bedding in, if you like, across Fox's responsibilities in IndyCars to make sure that, as well as servicing the US audience through Fox, that IndyCar have some support around the international feed, and IndyCar recognize that they have to produce an international feed that is fit for purpose and serves that sort of global audience and the international partners. So it's been work in progress, and we're just an international partner. So when you had the transition of NBC to Fox, that didn't impact our deal, because as an international broadcaster and partner on the international feed, we do our rights deal direct with IndyCar. So anything that comes through us or to us is through IndyCar on what is the international feed, or sometimes a Fox backhaul. And it's been a bit trial and error, and there is still work to be done and progress. And you've probably been across some of the commentary on that as the graphics get fixed and what have you. What is, what is interesting is it does change every weekend ever so slightly. We're still finding the rhythm, still finding the process. So when we start the program, I will come in and do a top, because that's new this year. So we've decided that I will come in and do a top, and then we'll try and join Jack Harvey for his legendary grid walk. But we will be beholden to the ADL, so that the count from the international team or the Fox team onto that particular section of the running order. And it's hard sometimes to hit that. So then we have the breaks. I will come in and fill those breaks. We get a count from the ADL, but it's live TV. So if there's a yellow, a crash, or suddenly the leader pits and they're counting down from 10, 9, 8 to a break, they're not going to go to a break. They will suddenly, at 5 seconds, stop and everything changes. You're all ready to go, and suddenly everything changes. And that ADL count is being delivered to me via Neil Wooding in the gallery so he is then counting down to me. So I'm listening to him. Then it gets a bit interesting sometimes when they're on a 3-minute break and something does happen and they want to come back early. So I might be 1 minute to handing back, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, folks are coming back early, 10, 9, 8. And, if you're in the middle of something quite juicy, or it's hard to wrap that up and suddenly throw. So, people at home are like, well, why is he just suddenly kind of wrap that up and stops? But it's, we are beholden to what they're doing. And so, we try and fit in around that as much as possible. But as I said, it's live TV. Anything can happen. It usually does. It's not always a well-oiled cog, because your plans never survive the first battle. And so, sometimes it can be super interesting. It's like a bit like learning to drive in the fast lane of the M25. You just got to have your wits about you. I've got so many screens, so many things going on in my ears. It's it's pretty intense.
I can imagine. I think that's more difficult than if you just talk live for the whole thing. You could get into a flow, get into a rhythm. You got to step out of that rhythm and step into it like just as quickly. So again, you do a fantastic job of that.
You might plan for 3 breaks or 2 breaks pre-show. So, they'll come on air and 10 minutes to the command, that kind of stuff. Might have just 2 breaks in the running order, but so you've got an idea of, welcoming everyone at the top, what you're going to talk about in the first break, what you're going to talk about in the second break, and then all of a sudden they'll throw in a third break, and you've kind of covered a lot of the stuff that you wanted to talk about pre-race. So then quick, and you've got 15 seconds to react to this. It's not like you've got 10 minutes to come up with something else to say. It's like, this is happening, and now you've got 15 seconds, and by the time you've digested that, you've probably got about 7 seconds to try and react to it. So it can be quite challenging.
It's challenging doing a podcast. I plan what I'm going to say, plan like days in advance, and then you get to recording and go, okay, we've gone slightly over half an hour. It's an hour 40. my Miami Grand Prix review, and you go, how did that happen? I planned everything to a T. So, and that's not even live. So I can easily imagine that you can get waylaid, and you've got to be kept in check, as you say, all those people working behind the scenes so hard to keep you reined in a bit. So yeah, it's a very difficult job that you do, and absolute praise for being live and doing that job. And just very quickly, what else do you cover? Because the other week I was messaging you were doing bikes on TNT. We heard you doing Porsche supercars this weekend, Super Cup this weekend. So just
with
a little bit of everything
there as well. We had sound issues at TNT this weekend. Yeah. So what else do I do? This year I'm doing some World Superbikes. That's for Eurosport. And I am doing Formula E for Eurosport. That is sort of top and tailing, so linking the show, similar to what I do with IndyCar. So I'll come on, I'll talk for half an hour over international pictures, and then I'll throw to World Feed Comms for World Superbikes and Formula E. That is for the international Eurosport channel. So when you go on holiday, when you're in a hotel, when you're in a villa or wherever you are, I'm doing that for Eurosport. For TNT, I will do Porsche Super Cup and the Endurance World Championship. So the Suzuka 8 Hour, the 24 de Mans, the Bol d'Or, Spa 8, the iconic Endurance World Championship races for bikes, and you have all the big names there. At Johan Zarco last year at the Suzuka 8 Hour, Ducati want to be at the Suzuka 8 Hour this year. You have Sylvain Guintoli, Randy De Pugna, Robbie Rolfer, Mike Miller, Grand Prix stars, and it's just awesome. I mean, the bikes are just phenomenal. They are a different breed up until you watch IndyCar this weekend and you watch some of those crashes at 238 miles an hour, and the likes of Armstrong and Scotty Mack and Colton Herta just getting out of the car and getting on with it. That's incredible. And the bike riders are very, very similar to that. It's mad. So I've been doing that. I do various different things. I've done the Olympics for Discovery, Warner Brothers. That's been absolutely awesome to do 2 Summer Olympics. I never thought as a racing driver that broke his back and tried to do a bit of color commentary, I never thought I'd be leading the coverage for the Olympics or closing the coverage for Eurosport 2 at the last Olympic Games. That kind of stuff is just really, really special. And you kind of got to pinch yourself to say, if this is the last thing I ever do, that's pretty cool.
And of course you've been on the Motorsport Review. So, I mean, just to put you up there now.
There you go.
Talking to 5 people, as many people that listen to this. So, phenomenal career. Just listing what you've been involved in, and that's what we love here is getting involved in so many different sports and just trying different things, different categories as well across the board. So, fantastic stuff. But let's get to IndyCar then. Let's have a bit of a review of where the season is so far, heading into the month of May. And I think there's only one name that really anyone can talk about this season, unfortunately, is Alex Palou, who's just absolutely turned around and dominated so far. I mean, he didn't win one race, but he's absolutely crushing the championship. So, I mean, that's where we got to start, isn't it, with that? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think that the big talking points for IndyCar this year are the introduction of the hybrid. I mean, of course, it came in at Mid-Ohio at the end of last year, but essentially, we've landed on our feet running at St. Pete. We've been to venues where we didn't have the hybrid last year. We've also got a different tyre for 2025. So that has been delivered by Firestone because last year we had various different challenges with the tyre. The hybrid wasn't in place. The tyre was too hard. The delta between the 2 compounds wasn't great enough, and this year that's been changed. It takes about 5-6 months for Firestone to turn that around and make it happen. So we've got these tires, and whether or not it's the Waiuli green sidewall tire on the street tracks or the red on the road, there's been quite a big delta. Add the weight to the hybrid and the fact that these cars are old. They are out of their operating window now in terms of the amount of weight that car is carrying and so forth. So everything's stressed and the cars are hard to drive because of that. And the drivers are having to drive under the limit to make it work. And we've seen that on, you know, on a speedway when you don't get any time to react to the car. Drivers are having to drive under the limit to be safe around IMS, and those that get near the limit are losing the car and are being put in the wall. Now, Alex Palou has been a sensation when it comes to managing the tires and when it comes to the way the car is at the moment. You know, his ability to extract performance out of the car with the way the car is, and with the fact that he can conserve tires and have that, you know, long tire window, or get the performance out of the blacks when no one else can. You know, he's just reacted to it better than everyone else. We've not seen too much in the way of strategy or jeopardy because people are driving under the limit. There is the hybrid, so you can restart if you spin. We're not seeing the cautions. We're not seeing that overlay of different strategies, which again plays into the hands of Alex Palou, because if you're at the front, you can control the race, and he's done that really, really well. He's also in the right place at the right time, so he's not actually been at the front controlling the race. You know, if you look at IMS road course, he was kind of playing with Graham Rahal like a cat plays with a mouse. He was waiting for Graham to run those used reds and then pounce. So he keeps his powder dry. He's very, very confident. He did exactly the same thing at Thermal, where he was just nowhere near, and then just ate into the lead car, past the lead car, and disappeared into the distance on that final set of new black. So he's just remarkably collective and remarkably precise, and just does things that only Alex Palou can do. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer as to why I think he's been so dominant. And the
beautiful answer. That's what that is.
Yeah, the others just keep making mistakes. You know, you look at Andretti making mistakes in pit lane, Colton Herta stalling, or at Long Beach putting it in the wall and damaging the car, and this and that, and Graham Rahal, you know, going off strategy. I'm not sure why he didn't try and mirror what Palou was doing at IMS. And you know, they just, with Barry Wanzer on the stand, Chip Ganassi, and Mike Hull, they just seem to do the basics really well at Ganassi. They don't beat themselves. That's one motto he's got in his locker every weekend. They're like, don't beat ourselves. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't make it hard for ourselves. Don't make mistakes. Just do the basics well. And actually, in professional sport, the more people you talk to, the more you look at other sports or performance environments, actually doing the basics is really difficult sometimes, because people are emotive, they're overcomplicating things, they're fearing failure, they're just a million miles away from just that robotic repetition of basic process. And he's just good at that. So he's going to be really hard to beat throughout the rest of the year.
I mean, it's the word that I keep coming back to is execution, because that's where I'm a McLaren fan. And when you think, what have Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris got to do to beat Max Verstappen? Well, it's like they haven't got to do the job 100%. McLaren have got to do the job, because that's where Red Bull and Max Verstappen, they just hit their marks, they hit everything, they hit the strategy, they don't make mistakes, and that's what you're racing against. And it's the likes of, go back to Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, the same thing. They don't leave those chinks in the armor for you to get through, so you have to match them, you have to execute perfectly. And as you say, that is just what Ganassi and Alex Palou are doing. Every race they turn up, they are the ones to beat.
You've hit the nail on the head. You end up beating yourself. Or if you make a small mistake, Piastri at turn 1 into Tamburello, he made a small mistake by braking early. If you do that, Max doesn't need a second invitation to capitalize on that. Once Max is then in front, they could so easily have panicked, like McLaren did, and pitted Piastri, worried about, you know, whether or not it was a 1 or a 2 and the undercut and various other things. But they don't. They don't make mistakes. You know, lots has been said about Ferrari's strategy and various other things over the season. Red Bull just execute very, very well, and Max does his bit. I'm fascinated by the fact that if you look also at the two circuits that are real driver circuits, Suzuka and Imola, where drivers relish being out in the car, and it's gnarly. And if you make one mistake, it's going to be an aeroplane crash like Yuki Tsunoda. Both of those circuits, Max has come to the cream's risen to the top.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's interesting then that, as you say, they get to these driver circuits and the cream rises to the top. And we see in IndyCar that they're going to race it at Indianapolis this weekend on an oval. And the phenomenal fact that Alex Palou hasn't won on ovals, and you start to go, okay, that's something that Formula One is missing. You know, they'll go to each track. They've got Monaco this weekend, and it's the same sort of style. Yes, there's street tracks, there's road tracks, if you like. I'm using IndyCar terminology now, but to not have ovals like IndyCar has, and that's
a whole new dynamic. I mean, the oval is just so different to anything that you've ever done, and it's very hard to explain to people how different it is and how much experience matters when it comes to the ovals, because they're super busy. And if you listen to the drivers being interviewed throughout this week, listen to Connor Daly yesterday talking about working the tools, what's he doing, versus Devlin DeFrancesco, who's reasonably inexperienced, asking on the radio during his run, shall I start working the front bar? The really experienced drivers know exactly what they need to do. They work on the car throughout the race to keep it tight, keep it loose. You know, if it's not working on the low line, they'll work on the high line. Okay, there's one line at IMS, but some of the other tracks that's relevant. And there's no substitute for experience. And Alex Palou is plenty quick enough on an oval. He's been on pole at Indianapolis, and he's super quick wherever he goes. But the problem is you've got drivers like Joseph Newgarden and teams like Team Penske who are just phenomenal on the ovals. And then you add into the mix that Scott McLaughlin's not far behind Joseph Newgarden, coupled with Aaron McLaren and Pato, who absolutely loves an oval as well. He's always quick there. And, a few other outliers like Colton Herta and Andretti have been super quick on the ovals at the end of last year since the hybrid has been introduced, because they've really struggled on the ovals in the aero screen era. So it's just super hard to win on the ovals. And strategy, because you're guaranteed yellows and people are on the primary and alternate strategy, there might be 3 different strategies in the field. You've got the big fuel save as well. There's so many different factors that come into play when it comes to the ovals. And then you got to stay out of trouble. In this Indy 500 coming up this weekend, it's 200 laps. They always say the first 150 laps is about staying out of trouble. And then you drop the hammer for the final 50. And
just
for Alex,
be there at the end.
He was in a great position until someone crashed into him in pit lane. So, it's hard to stay out of trouble.
It's great that IndyCar has these almost like two different categories of racing, and then come together to form the championship. So, yeah, I admittedly myself, I used to love the idea of IndyCar, but I couldn't get into the oval racing. I was like, oh, they just turn left. And admittedly, it was as late as when Alonso did it. And as I say, I'm a McLaren fan. I had to go and see how he was doing over there. And I was watching thinking, well, okay, so they get to qualify and they're just going as fast as possible. Well, it's surely just foot planted, turn left, don't accidentally turn right, and they'll all hit the same speed. And there's so much to it. And I actually think the oval races are better now than watching some. It's all good. I'm just saying that the oval races are more exciting because they are just corner. It's just constant throughout. There's no rest. It's great racing, and it's as you say, who can use the tools, and the smallest differences are going to determine who win the races.
Yeah, and you need to work your tools. You've got the front roll bar on the right hand side, the rear roll bar on the left hand side. You've got the weight jacker, and now you've got the hybrid. So you're dancing all over the place with your hands, and then you're doing 238 miles an hour into turn 1 and trying to keep it flat. It's phenomenal. And it's, when you hit the wall, it's a big hit. You know, Marcus Armstrong, that's the biggest hit of his life, and he will be so sore over these next coming days. It's so hard to explain to people. All your organs hit your bones, and the sort of internal trauma and bruising and what have you, it hurts. It really hurts. So yeah, I think the oval racing is phenomenal, and those little moments where, you know, we talk about the wet weather in Formula One separating the form guide. You know, people come into their own in the wet weather because there's a bigger delta between the performance, and the oval's the same. You know, if you haven't got the car underneath, if it doesn't feel right, you've got to respect the speed, and you'll all of a sudden find yourself nowhere. And that's not just in practice or qualifying or whatever. You know, if you get into the race and it's just not working for you, you know, you've got the wrong tire pressures, that kind of stuff, for that whole stint, you'll just drop off the face of the earth in terms of the pace. And it's so hard to try and manage that in the car.
Yeah, there's so much. It really is the month of May when you look at the schedule and go, is this right? The TV guy says it's practice 11, but there really is so much practice, so much. They're on track so much that there's so much to it. And obviously we've done qualifying now, we've done the fast laps, so now there's still practice because they need to now dial in to race. It's a completely different challenge again. As you say, we're not doing 4 laps now, you're doing 200 laps.
You're going to turn the boost down. And, you know, for Robert Schwartzman, his car came alive when they turned the boost up on Fast Friday. He finished day one 33rd out of 34 cars. His car wasn't the same with the boost down. So now they're going to be 10 miles an hour different in terms of their performance, which is a big difference. So it's going to be really interesting to see now with the boost down. We've got practice today, we've got carb day on Friday, how he goes, because actually he wasn't that quick with the boost down last week. So really interested to see that. And they'll have the boost down for the race as well. When I say the boost down, I'm not doing them a disservice. It just means that in qualifying, they turn everything up. And so the thing's so stressed, that we do about 4 laps. Obviously, they've got 200 laps to do on Sunday. And then for Kyle Larson, he's got another 600 miles to do after that when he gets in his plane and goes and does the Coca-Cola 600 straight. I mean, he's doing 1,100 miles in a day. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Unreal, isn't it? It's just one of the many storylines that are playing out this weekend. As I say, let's talk about Robert Schwartzman then, and sticking it on pole. I just a rookie, not just a rookie, but doing it for Prema, who are a new team. And I was saying to someone today, like, to understand how this is like, someone pointed out, it's like Cadillac turning up with a rookie next year and someone getting pole at Monaco. But this is a series, a spec series, if you like. They've got different engines, haven't they, Honda or Chevrolet? But other than that, the car's given to them. They have to just figure it out. And if you want an idea of how difficult it is, the likes of McLaren, who are a powerhouse when it comes to racing in all sorts of series, and how long it took them to get to the top. So to see Robert do it in Prema, and then let's talk about the front row as well. You've got different storylines along.
You know, Fernando Alonso came along and didn't qualify.
Yes.
So you know, it's challenging. So what he's done kind of happens once in a generation. It's happened, I think, 43, 4. Tiafabi was the last one to do it, wasn't he?
I'd remembered it before, but I've forgotten it now. 1980.
83, I think it was the last time it was done. And I think I know that because Robert Schwartzman is running with 83 as his number. Prema was founded in 1983, and the last time we had a rookie on pole was 83 at the Indy 500. So there's a nice little number sequence there for you.
Nice one. And as I say, you look across the front row of the grid, you couldn't have 3 drivers in very different stages of their career if you tried, I don't think, because lining up alongside him is a 48-year-old Takuma Sato. To talk numbers, I mean, we give praise to Alonso for how old he is.
He's a part-time veteran. So you got a rookie who's never raced on an oval in his life. You got a part-time veteran alongside him who doesn't even race in the series, and then you've got Pato. So yeah, super interesting. I mean, that 1-2 storyline's phenomenal. And for Takuma Sato, he has he's qualified in the top 5 3 times now. So this is his 3rd time he's qualified in the top 5. The other 2 times he qualified in the top 5, he won the race. So it's going to be really interesting to see, they're playing a dangerous game, allowing him on the front row where he can sort of get into a rhythm and control his pace and sort of keep his powder dry for 150 laps. You don't want to
watch.
Pato won't want to have him at the front near the end. That's for sure.
No, I mean, again, McLaren fan, I don't hide that, and it's about time that Pato Award won. I was hoping to get to it at the end, but I want you to tell me now how likely is Pato to win this race. give me hope. You got to tell me it's good.
You look at last year, and any other you finish second in any other race, and it's a good result. You're pleased with that. You finish second at the Indy 500, and it feels like it's the end of the world because it's so big. The build-up is so long. The emotions are running so high. The race means so much. It changes your life. I mean, it puts you in that sort of immortality. You're like a legend. It's just such a big thing to win the race. So if you come second here, you might as well have come 20th because you either win it or you don't. It's as simple as that. And we saw what it meant to Joseph Newgarden, who kind of went like 10 years trying to win this race. Scott McLaughlin, Alex Palou, they all talk about it. If you haven't won on an oval in IndyCar, you're not an IndyCar driver. If you haven't won the Indy 500, you could win as many championships as you want. It's the Indy 500 that they want. That is what cements you amongst the greats. And so for Pato, it was heartbreaking to see how upset he was last year. And he's done so well to talk about that emotion this year, to keep a lid on things through this week. And actually, our McLaren haven't been that quick in the build up. So to stick it on the front row, given where, his teammates are, that's a really, really solid result. And it's put him straight back in the frame to try and win this race.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I don't have a favourite. I'm completely impartial, of course, just slightly more.
Everyone loves Pato. You can't not love Pato. He's like an excitable puppy that bounds into a room and everyone stops what they're doing to sort of pet it. That's Pato.
Yeah, absolutely. He comes across like, as you say, so likable that it's difficult. It's impossible not to like him. And then he drives to the best team, of course, completely impartial again. But I want to go to the other end of the grid, or should I say, not on the grid. Unfortunately, yesterday, for all the delight, for all the happy stories, I want to mention Jacob Abel because I can't imagine going through the month of May, the practice, all of the simulations, all of the meetings, everything that he will run through to get to qualifying day. And then unfortunately, he's 34th and he is the person that, well, he doesn't go home, but spiritually has to go home. He will, unless something happens, he won't be on that grid. And the heartbreak that a driver must go through, older Formula One fans will know this, even before my time, where drivers didn't qualify, didn't get through. But this is just part and parcel of the Indy 500. There's so many people like Takuma Sato, like Carl Larson, that we've touched on already, that are attempting this race because it's so huge, means that they have to get the grid back down to 33. So the heartbreak. Talk to us about the heartbreak of being that driver.
I love bump day, and I think the Indy 500 needs bump day, and long may we have that level of interest in terms of the number of entries that allows us to have bump day. But seeing the driver on the bubble seeing the pressure. It's arguably a bigger spectacle on pole day than pole itself because of the trepidation, because you've invested so much time, so much effort. You have sponsors that are gearing up to be at the race, that have been people that you're talking about. You sold yourself to these people. There is an air of expectation, not just from them, the fans, the team, but that huge expectation that you put on yourself to then not make it, to not make the show. I mean, you know, we human beings don't like failing. And whatever it is, if we've not passed our driving test or not quite got the marks that we wanted in our exam or whatever it is, it's the worst feeling in the world to be on the global stage with millions of people watching you and to keep going, trying, knowing that there is an impending doom, if you like, around. If you can't get this speed up, you're going home. Everyone is watching you. It's like a penalty in a World Cup final. You know, no one else is on track. It's just you. And that pressure is sensational. And to then have to stomach that realization that it's you, that you're the one not making the field. You dream, you know, kids dream of racing in the Indy 500. To not even make the start, it's cruel. That's the reality of it. It's like penalties in football, like I said a second ago. You know, someone has to win, someone has to lose. And for the team that goes home, it's soul destroying. And it's very much the same here. It's soul destroying for him. I really feel for him. I feel for everyone in that situation. And you see the relief on the drivers' faces that aren't in it. Graham Rahal, when he made the field, when he didn't have to do that last chance. You know, VK, when he was sat there watching his teammate on that last run. I mean, you could just sense how high his blood pressure was and how low his stomach was. You know, the nerves were jangling as he watched on to see just that full lap average be underneath his and know that then, you know, he's made the field. But I love, and people say it is arguably a bigger spectacle.
It was a harrowing watch, has to say. That last 7 minutes, VK goes out and the time, the speed wasn't good. And again, Will Buxton, Townsend Bell, James Hinchcliffe were doing such a great job. At the same time, you could feel their emotion as they're saying, "Oh, I'm looking down at Rinus VK's family. I'm looking at his chief. They're head in their hands. Why have they done this? Why have they sent them out and put themselves in this situation?" And then that all shifted over to his teammate, of all people, his teammate. That, you know, then they're the ones, they go slower and they go home. And he wasn't, you know, Rinus wasn't celebrating. He was the first over to say, like, commiserations, it had to be one of us. But he just looked like the color had drained from his face. So it's harrowing TV, but it was so captivating. I should have been in bed long before that, and then I was like, no, I've got to watch this. And then the Fast Six happened after it, and oh my god, I was just, as I say, from someone that didn't like oval racing some years ago, it was like, this is just qualifying. This is so gripping, you know. And we got, as I say, practice, we got carb day, we got the race all ahead of us. So it's incredibly exciting what we've got coming up. We'll start to wrap up there. I know you're very busy, you're resting that voice, getting it ready for Sunday. So Tom, thank you so much for coming on, talking about the Indy 500. All that's left is for you to tell everyone how they can watch along, what the timings are for this weekend and for the rest of the event.
So look out for my socials. I will post a schedule and an update. Sky Sports F1 are going to join for the green straight off the back of Monaco. We are going to have a considerable build up on another channel and or YouTube. I will confirm the timings. It looks like a 3:30 on air. I will confirm that and where you can find it this week. So look out for my socials at Tom Gaymor on X, Blue Sky or Instagram. And I look forward to joining the whole audience as we sit down and watch this incredible race. I can say that we're going to have Simona Di Silvestro and Oliver Askew in the studio this time, so it's going to be great to have Oliver in there, an American voice, and you know, someone they've both done this race, so it's going to be really exciting to have them along for the journey with me.
That is fantastic. I will obviously post all of your socials in the notes as well, if people want to just click on it. You know, the five people that are watching this, we can get straight into those links. But
I'd rather have 5 people than 10,000, you know, floating in and out.
So based on the fact that no one's watching this, Tom, and you can be completely preferential, give us your verdict. Who is winning the Indy 500?
I said Joseph Newgarden for the three-peat, but that has taken a dramatic turn for the worse just before we recorded this, because he's going to start at the back of the grid now. So, you know, I think that the winner will come from the front two. I think it'll be Palou or Dixon.
Dixon.
I think Chip Ganassi, Team Penske have the best car out there. They've had the best car out there. And I'm interested to see what happens off the back of now having an attenuator that is in accordance with the rule book, and what that does to their pace. Nevertheless, they're starting from the back, and it's going to be hard to move forwards and stay out of trouble. So there's a lot of jeopardy around backing one of them, but they can do it. You have to then look at who's been quick as well in race pace, and Chip Ganassi have been super quick. So I think it could be Palou or Dixon.
Excellent. Look forward to seeing that. And obviously I'm backing Pato. I finally want to win the race, but we'll see who it is. And of course there's 30 other people that may just have a say in where it goes. So it'd be phenomenal to watch. Yeah, I realized we hadn't mentioned the Penske drama as it was just going live, but yes, they have been thrown out now. So
we'll just sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, there'll be more of that, I'm sure, in the build-up. Yeah. You'll have to cover that on the intro when you're on live TV rather than on the podcast. So, Tom, thank you so much once again. Another round of applause. Thank you so much for coming on, being a fantastic guest, and look forward to the main show on Sunday with everything that you're doing with your whole team. Good luck, and for the future and for Sunday, like with your continued success and for your continued growth and for just everything you do. And I hope more success in your future.
Thanks very much. And I really appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to watching the race with all of you IndyCar fans.
Anytime. We'll have you back on, maybe like season review, try and get you back on to do like a review of the season. But for now, this was the Motorsport Review. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.